let's work on this editor. Okay, so right now, we just have an ID. Let's replace this with an actual text editor. So what we can do is let's make a new component. We'll call it editor in the components folder. This is probably the most interactive component on the page, so it's for sure going to be a client component. And we'll just say editor. And we'll just return, we will get an entry here, and we'll just return the entry.content. So we got that. We can then go into the editor page, which is journal ID, entry page. And I'm just going to bring in the editor here. So we can render client components and server components. The editor is expecting a entry though. We don't have an entry, so we need to get it. So let's make a function to get the entry. This is a server component, so we can just fetch it on the server. So we'll just say const get entry. There's an async function. We need to use our helper function to get the user. It's going to be await get user by clerk ID. And then get entry is going to take in an ID for the entry that we want to get. And then we can say entry is going to be await, bring in our Prisma dot journal entry dot find unique. So we want to find a unique one here. Okay. So we might have to go back and update our schema, and let's see why. So we want to find the unique journal entry, but we want to make sure that that journal entry is for this user that is logged in, and it is the ID here. So I couldn't just say, yeah, find me the one where, ID is ID. I mean, it's not throwing any errors. That works. It'll execute. But how do I know that this one? I mean, you can just pass in any ID you want, right? If the ID is coming from the params, which it will be, all I need to know is the ID of your journal entry, and I can go in here and I can see it. So I need to make sure not only is it grabbing the one with the ID from the URL, but also it belongs to the person that is signed in. So if you go back and look at our schema, we know that a journal entry has a user ID. So you might just say like, oh, that's simple. I'll just say where ID is ID and user ID is user.id. Nope, that's not going to work. And basically the reason that's not going to work, I don't think this message tells you. Let me see if it tells you. No, so there's no way you would have known why this didn't work. So the reason this doesn't work is because this is find unique, which means everything that you put in where has to be a unique index. On our schema, user ID is not a unique index, it's just a regular index. So we have to make this unique. So we could just say, oh yeah, let's make this unique like this. And then now we can do that. But hold on, this introduces another problem. This works, but now you effectively, as a user, can only ever have one journal entry, because as soon as you make a journal entry with your user ID on it, and you try to make another journal entry with your user ID on it, it's like, nope, you can't. There's already one with your user ID on it. So we're going to make a compound index, which is a combination of two things. So it'd be the user ID plus the ID. And then now, as long as this combination is unique, which it should be because both of these two things are unique, we should be fine. And it satisfies the constraint of having a user ID be unique. So we're going to save that. And then to reflect these changes, we need to make a database push. So in your terminal, npx prisma db push. Probably going to get a warning here. There we go. We added a unique constraint covering the columns user and ID on the table journal entry will be added. If there are any existing duplicate values, this will fail. There aren't any existing duplicate values, so we're good. Generate a new client, and just to avoid any issues, I'm going to stop my server and start it again And then we just need to go in, and obviously this is messed up because we haven't passed anything into it yet. So now we just need to go in here, and now we get this, we still get the same error, but instead of doing like ID and user ID, we're going to say user ID underscore ID. It's when you do a combination, a complex or a compound index, the property in which you query from is a combination of the two of them in the order in which you pass into the array, separated by underscore. So user ID underscore ID, that's an object. And then you can say, well, the user ID is user.id, and the ID is ID. Any questions on that?
You say a little bit more about on line 9 that complex
Yeah.
key, like
Yep. So let's bring up this.
that's corresponding directly to the way this is declared on 36.
Yep. 100%. So we have this array here, and we have user ID and ID. So it's a compound index consisting of these two values. And now we want to query on them. So to query on them, there's this virtual field, which is a combination of those two values. So user ID, you can replace the comma you would see in an array with an underscore, and then ID. And then we have to provide each individual value for each one of those. So the user ID portion, it's the ID of user, and the ID portion is what was passed in. Have the entry. Now we can just return that entry. Oh, wait, not done yet. Oh, wait, actually, I think we might be done yet. I was thinking ahead of the AI stuff. Never mind. We're just going to return the entry for now. We're going to come back and change this with some AI stuff later. Cool, so we're just going to return the entry. And then now I can go down here and say, give me the entry, awaits, make this async, awaits get entry. And now I can just pass, or then I have to pass in the ID, which would be params.id. And then I can just say, cool, here's your entry. And this is fine. I can actually, you can pass props to client components from a server component. They just have to be serializable. And anything that comes from our database is serializable because it wouldn't have been able to save in the database if it wasn't serializable. So we can be rest assured that it's safe to pass. If it's safe to store in the database and come back, which crosses the internet, then it's safe to go into our client component, which crosses the internet. Okay, and there we go. Our entry is there on the page, at least the content for it.